Hello, everyone. I'm Josh Grimes, Partner Development Manager at Justin Alexander, and your host for today. Welcome to the Justin Alexander Luxury Group Pre-Show Roundtable, in conjunction with our very special nonprofit partner, VOW. Thank you all for joining us for this virtual event, wherever you are in the world. We hope you are well. We know COVID-19 has changed the direction of the world and how we interact with one another. We're so glad we can gather together to celebrate New York Bridal Fashion Week online. Today marks the first time we are able to bring together people from all corners of the globe. I have people checking in with us right now from Mexico, looks like the Netherlands, South Africa, Australia, Hong Kong, and the United Kingdom, and it looks like beyond from there as well. We are so grateful you're joining us, and even at an odd hour for some of you. The events of 2020 not only disrupted business, but have had such a huge impact on the lives of people across the globe. We're so proud to be able to gather to make a difference to a cause so close to our hearts, to benefit VOW, a nonprofit that works to end child marriage. A global advocate for freedom, justice, and development, and a serial entrepreneur for social change, Princess Mabel is the founder and board chair of Vow to End Child Marriage, a social enterprise that gives couples, companies, and the public the power to help end child marriage. Princess Mabel is also the initiator and board chair of Girls Not Brides, the global partnership to end child marriage, and is a member of the advisory boards of the Global Witness, the Joe Cox Foundation, the Malala Fund, the Sigrid Rousing Trust, and the Elders. She is also co-founder and chair emeritus of the European Council on Foreign Relations. Thank you to, With that, I would like to introduce Princess Mabel of Oranje.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Josh. And thank you, Justin Alexander, the whole team, everybody for making this possible. I wish we could have done this live, obviously, and hopefully that will be the case next year. But we are really, really excited to be able to do this online event and to be able to tell you a little bit about what child marriage is, but also to tell you why we're so incredibly excited about this partnership. And to tell everybody who is online right now how they might potentially help as well. But let me start by weddings, and let me start by my own wedding. I mean, when I think about my wedding, I think of a day of enormous joy, of, obviously making a commitment for the rest of your life. You have family or friends surrounding you. It's an absolutely wonderful day. In my case, I had the luck of wearing, I think, the most beautiful wedding dress ever made, which was a collaborative effort between me and Viktor&Rolf. There was 248 bows on the dress, absolutely amazing. Classical, but fun. Anyway, it was a really, really, really happy day. And then when you think about marriage, which for all of us is a happy event, unfortunately, that's not really the case for the 12 million girls who get married every year before the age of 18, all over the world. This happens across continents, across cultures, across religions, and it's happening, as I said, to 12 million girls. For them, their wedding day is the day where they normally have to leave school, if they were ever allowed to go to school. It's the day where they go to have to live with a man that they most often haven't chosen themselves, and in many cases is older than they are. It's the day on which, they might get pregnant, even though their bodies are not yet ready to give birth, and they themselves are really still children. It's also the day on which, for often many of these children, a life of physical and mental and sexual abuse might start. So child marriage, or marriage, which for us is something that is fun and positive and good, for these girls is really, in a way, the end of their dreams and the end of a prosperous future. Now you might wonder, why is this happening? And there are multiple different drivers behind child marriage. I remember the girls who I met in India who got married at a young age because of the dowry payment. So the parents of the girl have to pay a price to the parents of the boy. And the older the girl is, the more the parents have to pay. So for poor families, there's an incentive to marry your daughters off as young as possible because it will cost you less. Or I think about the girls who I've met on my travels to Zambia in Africa. And these, I remember, I'll never forget this girl who was a very, very, very good pupil in school. And I asked her, but how did you get married? And she said she had never heard about sex and about pregnancy and how you get pregnant. But when she was 11 years old, one of the boys in the village took her away. They had sex. She didn't know what it was. She didn't know you had to protect yourself. And so she found herself pregnant and ended up having to leave school and ended up in a child marriage. I think about the girls who I met in Ethiopia who were married just because in their communities that happens generation after generation. Your father and mother have done it, the grandparents, and so the community doesn't really know any better. I think of the millions and millions of girls who get married because there's no alternative, because they do not have access to schooling. And so you hear the reasons why child marriage happened is quite varied. It has to do with education, with poverty, with sexual protection. But in the end, child marriage is always driven by the fact that girls are considered less valuable than boys. It is an issue of gender inequality. The amounts of times when I was traveling, I heard people say, girls are a burden. You need to get rid of them as quickly as possible. It's really, really painful. And it is also stupid because the reality is that if you keep girls out of marriage and in school, they will increase the capacity of earning money later in their lives. And we know that when women earn money, they reinvest it in their families and in their communities. So it is actually good business to keep girls in school. Now, in order to end child marriage, there isn't a silver bullet. There isn't one solution. And therefore, it requires, depending on what's driving child marriage, it requires in different communities different approaches, which means that we need to empower local organizations to create that kind of change. And that's even more important in these times of COVID, because what we're seeing is that all these drivers of child marriage, the poverty, the lack of education, etc., are only getting worse. And so the United Nations has calculated that probably by the end of this decade, we will see an additional 13 million girls getting married. And that's on top of the 12 million girls who already get married every year. So as you can hear, this is a problem that is complex, but the fact that it's complex doesn't mean that we cannot do something about it. And that's what I've been dedicating the last 10 years of my life to, and which I will continue to work for. Because I believe that every girl, regardless of where she's born, should have an opportunity to have a bright future. And so before I tell you what VOW is about, let me tell you one story about a girl who I met in Ethiopia. This was when I was starting to work on ending child marriage about a decade ago. And I met this girl, she was seated next to me. It was a group of married girls. And I asked her, how old were you when you got married? And she said, I don't know, because I don't know when I was born. Because in many poor countries, their girls do not get birth certificates. But she looked at me and she said, I must have been between the age of 5 and 7 when I got married. And that hit me because I figured my daughters at that time were 5 and 6 years old. And I thought if they had if they had been born there in that community, they would probably have been child brides by that time. And the fact that girls are, just because you're lucky to be born in one place and not in another, that determines your destiny, I just think that's wrong. So let me tell you about VOW, and let me tell you about what each and every one of you can do. When we were working on ending child marriage, we realized at some point, why don't we make it possible that when people in the wealthy West get married, they can help to make sure that girls elsewhere in the world do not have to get married before the age of 18. The whole concept of when a couple says, I do, they help girls elsewhere in the world to say, I don't. And one of the things that I strongly, strongly believe in life is that everybody can make a difference. So we realized, let's look at the wedding industry, which all of you are part of. And we realized that in the United States alone, annually, $100 billion gets spent on weddings. Now, if we could get a tiny percentage of that money to go to efforts to make sure that girls don't get married, that would have, in those countries, in Africa, in Asia, and in Latin America, that would have a huge catalytic impact. That means that we can actually end child marriage. So we figured, let's see if we can unite the entire industry, the couples who are getting married, their family and friends, their guests, all of you who are providing the amazing dresses that the brides wear on these days, the people in the industry who provide the cakes, the flowers, everything, the products, the registries. Let's see if we can all bring that together to make sure that we end child marriage. So how does it work? Basically, in VOW, we're doing three things. One is we're empowering couples to align their wedding with VOW, so that they can, for example, say, okay, we will align our wedding registry with VOW, and a percentage of all the presents bought will be given to VOW. The second way we do this is through products. So, you know, there are products like there's beautiful t-shirts, there are now a whole Le Creuset casserole set, there are, you know, there are, how do you call it, candles, etc. There's a whole host of, there's going to be there's some amazing jewelry pieces. There's a whole host of products where we get either a percentage or we get a fixed amount. And this is where we, again, very grateful for the generous collaboration with Justin Alexander. And thirdly, there's the issue of donations. Because we find that increasingly couples say, look, we already have everything we want. We would rather that on our wedding day, our guests can also give a donation to VOW. Now, the good thing is that all the money that VOW gets goes 100% to projects and efforts in the countries where child marriage takes place to end child marriage. So the overhead, there is no money is being used for the overhead. And you might wonder how that money is being spent. We give that to our sister organization called the Girls First Fund, which has expertise in making sure that money goes to those projects in faraway places, but that have really an impact and help girls to stay out of marriage. Now, we're really excited that the latest development is that we're developing VOW Pro. And VOW Pro is a network of wedding professionals like yourselves who are coming together and who are saying, look, we understand the enormous potential of this industry. And what we're going to do is we're going to help to make sure that we mobilize some of that potential to end child marriage. So members of VOW Pro, the VOW professionals, they can either decide that they give a percentage of their collection or of a dress to VOW. Also, you guys can be amazing ambassadors because you can share information about VOW and about the cause of ending child marriage with your customers, with brides-to-be. And you can help, thirdly, you can help raise awareness in your showrooms, in your stores, on social media about this cause and about the change that we can collectively make. So if you're willing to contribute and see if you want to become a member of VOW Pro as well, please go to the website www.vowpro.org and see and sign up if you're interested, and help to come together as an industry to make sure that couples will not only have a perfect wedding day, but that couples will actually have a meaningful wedding day as well. So hopefully you will join us to make sure that hopefully you'll join us to make sure that girls can be girls and not brides. And I want to thank once again, Justin Alexander, the team, everybody who has already committed to this cause and for this partnership. And I hope that many, many of you in the audience will join in order to make sure that indeed every girl can stay in school and out of marriage. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Princess Mabel, for joining us today and speaking so eloquently about this important cause. Now it's our turn to give back. Working as an industry, we can help to end child marriage. On behalf of each guest here in the event today, Justin Alexander will be donating $10 to VOW. We encourage everyone to donate $10 as well, and we'll also match your donation. You can donate at our registration page, and we'll pop the link into the chat here for everyone right now. Thank you again to VOW and Princess Mabel for all the amazing work that you do and for joining us today as we launch our brand new collections. Now, let's get to know each of our luxury group designers before we hit the runway. The Justin Alexander Luxury Group is part of Justin Alexander Incorporated, a world leader in designing, manufacturing, and distributing bridal fashion. The group includes Justin Alexander Signature, Savannah Miller, and Viktor&Rolf Mariage. We welcome Justin Warshaw, CEO and Creative Director of Justin Alexander. The Justin Alexander Signature Collection redefines luxury with its focus on opulence and drama. The collection is designed for the modern bride seeking a wedding dress that expresses her lavish sense of style and on-trend fashion sense. We're also pleased to have with us Savannah Miller, founder of her namesake bridal line. Following stints at Alexander McQueen and Matthew Williamson, Savannah Miller launched her bridal collection in 2016, incorporating both directional and timeless designs. She believes in celebrating elegance and individuality through thoughtful and unique designs that work for real women who treasure taste and the value of quality. And finally, we welcome Andrea Collesei, CEO of Viktor&Rolf. Viktor&Rolf is the avant-garde luxury fashion house founded in 1993 by fashion artists Victor Horstein and Rolf Snoren. Widely recognized and respected for its provocative haute couture and conceptual glamour, with Mariage, Viktor&Rolf presents its luxury bridal wear collections, an exploration of iconic elements inspired by classic couture influences. Collectively, the three iconic brands of the luxury group family have achieved so much in recent years, even in the face of adversity. Design awards, campaigns, editorial features, celebrity endorsements. We thought we'd share a short highlights reel to celebrate just a few of these incredible accolades. And now let's get and now let's talk to some of our designers, actually all of our designers. We'd love to hear from all of you. Let's start with Justin. How did your journey into bridal begin?
I'm on mute there, sorry about that. Thank you very much, Josh. And I also wanted to thank Princess Mabel. That was absolutely unbelievable to hear about what she's doing to end child marriage. And yeah, I'm just wowed and so happy to be a part of that organization. And thank you to Andrea and Savannah for joining us, as well as all of the attendees today. So I've been in bridal, for a long time, and since I was born practically, because this business, Justin Alexander, is part of a third generation family business that was founded by my grandparents, Ted and Shirley Warshaw, in 1946. Initially, they founded the business by starting a headpiece collection, headpiece, tiaras, veils, etc. And then my father and his brothers joined the business in the 70s, and they launched a collection called Sweetheart Gowns in the 80s. And they were developing dresses under that collection for many, many years. My father had focused on the European market in the 90s. And since joining the business in 2008, I've had a focus on both the creative and business sides of Justin Alexander and also developing the US market.
Awesome, thank you, Justin. Savannah, share with us, how did your journey begin in bridal?
Accidentally, actually, my my wedding ended up on the front cover of Hello because my sister Sienna was attending, and a paparazzo was up a tree unbeknownst to us, and we were getting married outside. And a bridal store owner in Brooklyn saw my wedding and said, "Your wedding looks so beautiful." This was in the days pre-Pinterest. And we just happened to have our wedding outside. I happened to have flowers in my hair, and it was a very bohemian affair. And at that time, that wasn't really happening in the commercial domain. And so she suggested that we collaborate, and we did, and it was a huge success. And then I just have gone from strength to strength, particularly now under the wonderful umbrella of the Justin Alexander Signature Group.
I love that. Thank you so much. Andrea, tell us how Viktor&Rolf got into bridal.
I've heard a little bit of the story from Princess Mabel. So they happened, you know, the first bridal dress, they made it directly for Mabel, and it was, as she said, a collaborative approach, so really working on the details and so on. But it's true that, I mean, if you look at their couture show, they are always working on the concept of spectacular beauty in one way or the other. And you always see a reference to a bridal dress in their show because they think that I mean, the wedding is the most spectacular moment for women in their life. So for them, it's a natural translation of their work, and it's always what they've always dreamt to do, and they enjoy really doing also today.
That's great. You know, you just made me think of another question. Can you tell me how? I'd love to hear how you and Justin Alexander started the team process. How did you guys work that out, or how did that come to light?
I mean, in the end, it was the beginning. The very beginning was really funny because you know, I was discussing with the designer as well. Okay, how shall we do this bridal line? Because they were really keen on doing it, and we tried to understand a little bit about the market, the big players, and so on. And then I happened to visit the bridal fair in Barcelona, and I sit down with Justin and his father directly, and you know, beside you know, finding a common vision on the business and the opportunity for Viktor&Rolf, we found since the beginning also a very natural personal relation between him and the rest of the team and the designer as well. So it was quite natural to join together. Let me say that since the beginning, we have identified Justin Alexander as a great partner for us because it has a global reach. At the same time, the capability to translate the design ideas of Viktor&Rolf into real dresses. And I can assure that this sometimes is quite a challenge, as you can imagine.
I can imagine that. Thank you. Savannah, who do you have in mind when you are designing, and how would you describe your aesthetic?
I would describe my aesthetic as being sort of understated elegance, and it's about making my bride feel like the best version of herself. So often I'm inspired by 1930s Hollywood and also 90s grunge fashion. And then it's the amalgamation of the two that creates this very sort of effortless, understated, elegant silhouette that really appeals to contemporary brides, and is also relatively ageless because the gowns are designed in a very simplistic and elegant way, which means that your photographs generally don't date, and you look very sort of chic in the best version of yourself. That's what I try to do anyway.
Well, I think you're very chic. I love what you've put together. So I'm excited to see the new stuff come out soon. Justin, I'd love to ask you about sustainability. It seems to be a really big topic in the market right now. What is Justin Alexander doing to promote sustainability?
Absolutely, Josh. Sustainability is something that's important to me as a person, and also something that Justin Alexander is always looking at how we can improve in various ways, because it's something that's very important to millennials and even more so to Gen Z. So we need to think about the future of who's going to be getting married and continue to develop in a way that, you know, our company, our collections are attractive for those people. So something that I did earlier this year actually was I met with a company called Good On You. Good On You is an organization that's also kind of a directory and a consulting organization that can advise you on what ways you can become more sustainable. Additionally, they actually have a directory that rates different companies. And something that I noticed very quickly was that no bridal companies were rated on this at all. We're not even on their radar at the moment. It's not because we're not sustainable, it's just because we haven't actually reached out. No one in bridal had reached out to this company to kind of, you know, get rated or learn on how to be more sustainable. So in itself, obviously, bridal is a one-time wear. So it's tough to change the business model completely and to be very sustainable. Yet there are things that we can do and have done to become more sustainable. Something that's very important for sustainability is, knowing your complete supply chain. So having relationships with your factories, your partners, visiting those people, and even knowing all the way down to the material suppliers. So the laces, the fabrics, whoever you're working with, you need to know those people, you need to visit, you need to make sure that they're also following, correct labor laws, et cetera. We have an ethics charter that we actually ask each and every one of our factories and partners to sign that has stricter regulations even than the local governments or the countries. So that's very important to me, and I think it's also very important to Savannah Miller and Viktor&Rolf. So we've done that since the beginning, and it's something that I plan on continuing. Another thing that's important is, in sourcing, so sourcing materials closer to where you're producing is very important. Another thing that's very important also is optimizing shipments by sea instead of by air as much as possible. And that's obviously a tough trade-off right now because oftentimes brides are seeking, delivery or their dresses quicker and quicker because we're used to this idea of faster fashion, the Amazons, et cetera. So it's always a tough balance, but something we've done is we've also invested in technology that allows us to time phase our inventory. And what that does is it displays more inventory and it optimizes our inventory for our clients. It's kind of like an order matching technique that we use. And also being wasteful with materials. So something that we've done recently is we've allowed customers to opt in or opt out of receiving certain types of materials, including, catalogs, including, garment bags and hangers, because oftentimes those hangers or garment bags will end up in the back of house. So we don't want to produce those and send those to customers if you're not going to be using them. Another thing that we've halted altogether is utilizing animal products on any of our gowns. So moving forward, you will not see any animal products. That's another important factor for sustainability. So we continue to try to learn and adapt new ways in order to be sustainable. So yeah, that's pretty much that.
Awesome, thank you. Andrea, I would love to hear what you're doing with sustainability initiatives at Viktor&Rolf, and it's important to the fashion industry. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, let me say that Viktor&Rolf started a journey with sustainability quite a few years ago when it was not necessarily a mainstream subject as it is today. So we are glad on the respect that we really started the chance to learn during this process. They were basically the first one to propose a sustainable couture. They started by recycling physically the material that they had from previous collection. Then they went into creating a collection made out of vintage store. Then they experimented with the natural dyed material and so on and so forth. Like, I can mention every single show of Viktor&Rolf on the couture is now centered about sustainability. Besides that, we have been working a lot also on the lines that we produce to make sure that we reduce as much as possible the global footprint of what we do. And that goes, for anything from, for example, being the first brand to have a refillable fragrance, because we are also very active on the fragrance world. And if you think about it, fragrance so far is not necessarily a very environmentally friendly industry. But also, experimenting a lot in fabrics using recycled material. This we applied also to the wedding, trying to work on project to recycle and reuse all the stock. It also goes for Viktor&Rolf beyond the concept of conscious design. That is a little bit broader than just sustainability. It's really rethinking the pace of fashion, the concept of seasonality, and the concept of the product as well. Because I think, that the best way to sustain the environment, we believe at Viktor&Rolf, is to create meaningful product that can last for a long amount of time, that they are not necessarily thrown away with the seasonality and so on. Obviously, as Justin was mentioning, it's a little bit more difficult to do it on the bridal industry, because the dress is meant to be used only once. But we're really trying to look in that respect to use material that are recycled, and trying to understand as well how we can reuse also the little leftover in the production cycle to create maybe veils or other small accessory, just to make sure that again we reduce completely the impact on the environment.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. It's really exciting to hear what you're doing, as well as Justin Alexander, to really keep moving forward with sustainability. And I want to ask you one more question, Andrea. What impact did COVID-19, what impact do you think COVID-19 had on the luxury market?
I think, we are all probably still at the very beginning, and we are all experimenting it. So sometimes it's a little bit difficult, maybe while you are in the middle of the process, to have a clear vision. But for sure, what we are seeing today in the luxury world, and I think it applies also to the bridal industry with some, obviously, some differences, is what we call a sort of new normal. So the industry has switched to a way to cope with the emergency, a way also of making sure that things can proceed, and the industry can move on, as we are doing, for example, today. But on the other side, we expect that in the next 6 to 18 months, a new way of approaching luxury will emerge. So this is just a peak of the iceberg, but we will see a lot of changes coming forward. And I mean, honestly, the COVID is just a big accelerator of trends that were there since the beginning. For example, we have been mentioning sustainability. Clearly, the fact that COVID has had on our lives is making every consumer even more conscious about sustainability now. But that was already existing. The impact of digital on the luxury industry was, already there, but it has been accelerated in the last 3 to 6 months, and we expect this to happen even more so in the next future. The impact of Generation Z, the different approach on consumption as well. So the fact that people is moving from buying products to looking for experiences is changing the shape of what we do, and also making us think about what we could do in the future. And obviously also, the trend of the personalization, the fact that people is now accustomed, thanks also to the digital, to have a direct relationship with the brand, and at the same time to, considering a luxury product as a product that needs to be tailored for them, specifically for them. And obviously this is changing a lot the way in which we approach all our lines. As I said before, we are even more looking for meaningful product that can last for longer period. We are also trying to experiment new ways of reaching the consumer directly, and trying to learn a little bit about this direct to consumer relationship, where the consumer really feels entitled to speak directly to the brand and to the designer as well. On the other side, specifically maybe for the bridal and for this audience, I personally believe, and we believe at Viktor&Rolf, that this crisis is putting even more pressure on creating a stronger link between brands and stores. Because, in the bridal industry, there is this very special situation where the bride is requiring a lot of support during the process. For that reason, there is no way that the stores will be substituted by anybody or anything, and we cannot imagine a fully digital experience. There is a moment when the bride comes to a store, then she tries the dress, and she finds the one that she really loves, and then she gets the rest of the experience together with the stores. On the other side, we see that the process is becoming more complex also for the stores, because there is more need to reach the brides on the social media, to create a personalized experience and a deeper understanding with the brands. So for all those reasons, we are also trying to understand together also with Justin Alexander and their organization, how we can work together better and and provide a better service to the stores and to the brides.
Yeah, no, and I think that digital connection, when you mentioned that part, that's been the biggest thing for myself, in work and in personal life. So I really hold on to that piece. Thank you. Savannah, what have these events of 2020 taught you personally so far?
Well, it's been very interesting, obviously, because we've had to adapt and change in order to continue to communicate with our brides. And we had some very amazing creative stores who came forward during lockdown and put on Zoom fittings with their brides, where they would be in the store and the bride would be at home and I would be in my kitchen and I would be saying, go and get her that one and let's try on this one and I think this one will be really good. And then the store would do a sort of drive-by pickup where the bride would try the gowns on at home, and we had orders coming through that way. And it was incredible for me as a designer to be talking to my brides and hearing directly how these gowns are making them feel and how, what they wanted from their gown, despite the way that the ceremonies were going to be reduced in numbers and everything. Everyone still wants to look like the best version of themselves on their wedding day. So from a designer point of view, that was really interesting, because very rarely do I get client facing experience, because all of the wonderful stores are out there doing that bit for me. So that was really, really interesting. And it's enabled me to communicate much more clearly with my brides via Instagram and other social media platforms, and understand really deeply what they are seeking, what women want, and how we can all continue to make them feel fantastic. People still love each other. People still want to make those commitments to one another, despite this really, really challenging time that we find ourselves in. So it's wonderful to have been a part of that, to continue to be a part of that.
I couldn't agree more with what you just said. And in fact, you warmed my heart with that, just because it's so true that we are still able to love. And that's the best part about what we're doing, is we can still share that. So thank you. Justin, I wanted to talk to you about, how have you seen the industry change over the last year?
Absolutely. First of all, we really realized how important partnership, flexibility, and understanding are. It's been an amazing 6-8 months just really partnering with our stores to figure out how to cope with this new normal, as Andrea described. This industry is incredibly resilient. I've been so impressed by so many people that have come up with very smart ways to, communicate with their brides. We're in uncharted territory, so everything's so new. So there's been so much creativity across the board. And this creativity, it's unbelievable. If we've been able to really sustain our businesses by, adapting and adjusting how we work with brides. And it's, as I've said, it's been really unbelievable. So a big part of that has been obviously technology, which everyone has really touched on a little bit. Early on, we identified that we might not be able to see, brides might not be going into stores for quite a while. So we started developing, virtual trunk shows, virtual sales presentations. We also started having webinars where we were educating retailers on how to conduct virtual pre-qualification or appointments or consultations. We adapted our website to kind of cater to that and communicate to brides who was performing those things. So technology has been an extremely huge part of this, last 6-8 months. There's definitely been a lot of changes that retailers have made in store that have worked out very well for them, which I think many of them will be sticking moving forward.
It's great. And, one of the things I have to just say, working with you, challenging me in the technology side of things and plugging that forward is so huge in my role. And I think our retailers have really appreciated that as well. And you've done such an amazing job of honing that in, and I appreciate that. I do want to ask you, where do you see the future of the bridal industry going from here?
Okay, excellent. So I think that diversity and sustainability are two very important topics moving forward. Diversity is something that we have our eyes on right now, making sure that across all brands in our portfolio, we are diverse and inclusive. In any way possible. Further, this last year, a lot of shops have tried out closed stock. So limiting the ability for brides to actually just shop around and browse the collections that they have in store. Some of this has been due to obviously COVID restrictions, but it's actually worked very well and helped shops increase their close ratio by, bringing out dresses that they think are right for a bride with their expert opinion, as well as dresses that are in the correct size for that bride. So we've seen a massive increase in conversion rate due to that. I think that virtual will continue on in some capacity, whether it be pre-qualification or virtual trunk shows or appointments. So I think shops should consider keeping some sort of virtual, because ultimately you can save in-person time and build the rapport before the bride even enters the store. So I think that's going to continue to be very important. I think that I referred to fast fashion, and brides wanting a shorter lead time. That's going to continue to be important. Obviously there's some competition out there that does stock dresses and sell online. That's not our business model, but obviously we keep an inventory available for our retailers, and they should also consider keeping a very small, inventory of key styles that might be for these micro monies on hand in store, because that could be important moving forward. Stricter pre-qualification. So vetting brides to make sure, look, if I'm going to take an appointment with this bride, I want to make sure she's serious. So I think that's going to continue to be important. And I also noticed that partnership is becoming more and more important for retailers and ourselves. So we're inventing new ways to partner more closely with our bridal shop partners, just to figure out how we can be the best partner ourselves and drive as many new leads to our shops as possible.
That's incredible. And, a lot of what you said there, I think we all as an industry can say the word of the year is micro-moni. 2020 micro-moni or mini-moni. Thank you, Justin. I'd like to personally thank Princess Mabel of Oranje, the amazing group at VOW, and all of our incredible designers, and you at home for joining us.